So today I'm going to show you how to use JSTOR. We're really lucky here at Dublin City Schools to have a subscription to JSTOR. It is a college level scholarly academic database, and you are able to access 2,600 different professional journals. There are 70,000 ebooks available on JSTOR and over 2 million primary sources. So it is a great resource, and it is the type of database that no matter what discipline you go into, if you go to college, you will use other similar databases. So first of all, we just go to jstor.org, and I'm actually signed in. So let me go ahead and log out. We'll log in, and you will use your Google credentials. You don't need to put in usernames and passwords. It should already recognize you through your Google username and password. So here we are, logged in, and you'll see a search box that you're very familiar with. However, always keep in mind, JSTOR is not Google. It doesn't work in the same way, and we have to use search terms. Google has become very intuitive, and it allows you to put sentences and large phrases, and it sort of does a lot of the work for you. But databases still work with Boolean terms, and the types of terms that a librarian would give to articles or books as a search term. Okay, so now if we're just looking for an author or a title of a book or something, it's very simple. So let's say I'm going to do some research on Emily Dickinson. And you'll notice that on here, it pops up down here, author, title, publication. So it kind of gives you a little hint to use your search term, your tag. Now, it's just as easy, I think, to not do it and just click it. But if you do research all the time, you might automatically put in these little tags. Okay, so I'm going to click results. And I'm surprised I only got 107. But if I think, 107 actually is pretty good. I could probably go through that pretty easily and look for what I'm looking for. But if I come up with way too many, I could always look over here and see what my options are. If I want to narrow it by publication date, if I'm only interested in Emily Dickinson's relationship to religion or her in feminist studies, I could click those and it would narrow it down and only give those to me in those journals that had to do with those topics in those disciplines. But probably you're going to end up with a lot more search it, but you usually will end up with a lot more hits than 107. So it's usually best if you're not just doing something straightforward like a specific title or a specific author, and you come over here to the keyword search. So let's say I want to look at, it's being very weird, doing really wants to look up my name for some reason. All right. I want to look up poetry. And feminist poetry. but not, let's say, protest poetry. Okay. So these in these boxes are what we call Boolean modifiers. And so they've added these near 5, near 10, which is kind of interesting. Basically, what that means is that this word is within 5 words of this word, or 10, or 25. And so obviously, if you want it really close, it would be like something that's actually said feminist poetry. And then down here, I can look, well, I really just want articles. I don't want pamphlets in this case. Language is always a good one to set, setting it in English if you speak English. Obviously, if you happen to read another language, you might choose that one, but it will narrow it. Now, I don't really care about the date because when I do look at something in literature, that's not important to me. But in some disciplines, it definitely is, and you would want to narrow it by publication date. And then this is probably one of the more interesting ones down here because it gives you all of these different disciplines. And like, for example, for poetry, feminist, and protest, there's actually something in here in biology, biological sciences, 164. Well, I'm not interested in biological sciences. British studies. Do I want to narrow it just to feminist British poetry? And so I can look through here and decide what is the one that I'm actually kind of interested in. Ooh, look, Latin American. Now that's interesting. Let's see what we find in protest poetry in Latin America. Okay, so here we go with some really interesting articles, 427 of them. Let's say I just, and again, if I think, oh, 427, I can't look through all of that. I can go back on the left-hand side here and modify it some more in what I'm specifically interested in. I'm going to just pick one. Let's say I like this one. Here is the article for me to read. Also available, which is something that's really important, is the citation. So if you get something from JSTOR, make sure you also get the citation. There's no reason to do it yourself. And you need these URLs anyway, so make sure you go ahead and copy that, whether you want MLA, APA, Chicago, and I think there's some others available, but these are the ones most often used. And also kind of interesting, and this is a newer thing, is you've hit this little icon over here, reference, shows you the reference sheet. And reference mining is always something that's really great to do. If you find an article that you really like, then look at that person's reference sheet and see if there's anything in their references or their works cited, if you're doing MLA, that also looks interesting, and you can look that article up. Now, none of these at this point have links, but what JSTOR is working on is putting in links for any of the articles that they have available that this author referenced. So that will actually be a really great tool when that happens. Now, this is kind of an obscure topic, so that's probably why none of these are linked yet. Here's your PDF. You can download it and have the PDF, or you can share it, email it, whatever. Okay, so those are the basic JSTOR tools, the basic way you'll want to use it, and I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that you narrow your search terms, because if you don't, you get hundreds of thousands of hits on something, and it's just impossible to go through. So typically we start with advanced search, and like I said, unless it's something just really specific, and you can put it in this box, and if it's a specific person or phrase, make sure you use your parentheses. The other interesting thing that JSTOR is offering is this text analyzer, and that is brand new. You can see it's still in beta. You drop a text in here, and when you do that, it is going to look for any articles that have any of the same type of information that it finds in the article that, or the text that you put in there. Now, interestingly, you can put in an article or an abstract. That's actually a really good way, is if you already have an article and you're looking for something else on that, you can take the abstract from that, put it in here. You can also, though, which is really interesting, you can place something you're writing inside for the text analysis. And I was just looking for something on my documents on this computer with some text that we could analyze. So you saw me pick something. And so then this is its analysis. And it's giving us some articles that also talk about those same type of search terms. This was an article I wrote, I think it was a draft of it, on English language learners. And you can see all the different search terms. Now, these are search terms, and that's the other thing that this is helpful with, because it starts to get you to understand the types of search terms that are being used in your topic, so that you will understand the specific vocabulary, and then you see here even some specific names. And you can say, what I'm really interested in, though, is the literacy of this. And you click that, and it's going to update it to move anything it thinks is more literacy involved. I say, okay, no, what I really specifically want is reading instruction. And it will update my results to reflect the changes in that. You can also add a term. And so I want to add student interest, and see how it adds it up here. That actually did change my articles when I put in that student interest was of importance to me. So if that's really interesting, it's a whole different new and way of researching, and it's beta, but it's been around a while, and JSTOR is saying it's working pretty well. So I think if once it becomes, full on, that, it actually might be our new way of doing it. So do check that out. And it's actually just sort of fun in a way to find new search terms. And it has the same tools: cite this item, download it, save it, whatever you'd like to do. So that's JSTOR. And I think that all of you are going to be using it an awful lot while you're still in high school and if you go off to college.